Okay. It's a bit loud. Hello. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Morning, everybody, and welcome to today's event. My name is Aaron, and I work here at Go210. We're a non-profit organisation run by Internet Stiftelsen, Swedish Foundation of Internet. And here at Go210, we are free co-working space. We're a community. We're an event space to have events like this. So if you feel like becoming a member and you want to use the space, we're open Monday to Friday, 8 to 4:30. Come along, have coffee, use the rooms, 3D printers. You can book the space to have meetings and meet cool people and enjoy the place. So if you want to find out about it, if you want help, just talk to me. I can show you around, and if you want to become a member, do that. So I'm going to pass you now on to Felicia, who's going to talk about today's event. Thank you. There you go.
So thank you so much, and a warm welcome to everyone being here this Tuesday morning of the Innovation Week that we have here in Östergötland. My name is Felicia La Jakobsson, and I'm the process manager and operational manager for Visual Sweden. I'm going to talk to you about what that is in a minute, but today's theme is the industrial metaverse, and we're going to get an understanding of what is possible today, what are the enablers, and how does the future look like, and what value can this bring to you. So I hope you appreciate today's event. I usually start with this image just to explain why is visualization such a powerful tool. And we say that this is a highway to the brain. And when I say a highway, I'm talking about the bandwidth from your senses to your brain. So just for you to get an understanding, let's start about the taste. The taste represents 1. Talking about smell and hearing, well, it's 10 times bigger. And now we're on touch. So everyone knows if you get burned, you know this really fast. So it's 100 times bigger than the taste. But of course, the vision. The vision is 1,000 to the taste. And what does this mean to you then? Well, if you want to explain something that is really important, if you want to communicate and convince someone, then you need to have a vision. You need to have an image of some kind. Because if you have that, you have 100 times bigger bandwidth than if you just explains and try to make someone understand by words. And in the background, to build that image, of course, you need to have all the information, to do the filtering, to build up the actual value. But this is why visualization is such a powerful tool. So, short about Visual Sweden. We have the vision to become Europe's most attractive innovation environment for visualization and image analysis. And we have also the vision to strengthen the knowledge nation of Sweden through excellent research. We are being hosted by Linköping University, where they have international acknowledged research in combination with 119 companies that are experts within visualization and image analysis. And together with them, we drive innovation. And one example of that is what you're going to hear today, a collaboration between Nagarro and Visual Sweden, where we have been doing a report looking into metaverse. And today we have built up a little bit more. So with us, we also have Nagarro, as I said, around the corner, Telenor and Ericsson, and we'll also see a short video from Linköping University. So I'll hope that you get an understanding of what's possible today for you. What are the enablers and what does the future look like? So let's not wait for the future. It's already here. A warm welcome to Dasil.
Let me see. Oh, the voice started before I realized it. Let me see. If we make the clicker work. Of course not. Yes. So happy to be here. For many reasons. For started, this is the first time I've been in Linköping, ever. It's not raining, so I'm super happy. Coming from Gothenburg, anything else is happy because normally it rains all the time. My name is Dasil Hernandez, and you can hear I'm not from Sweden. Even I live in Gothenburg, I'm from Spain. So that's why I sound the way I do. So if you don't understand some point, it's like, she's Spanish, doesn't matter. I want to welcome you and also the people online. Thank you to listen to us. I want to talk about the industrial metaverse, and I wonder why me, why I'm here. I joined Nagarro almost 2 years ago, and the beauty about Nagarro, we'll tell you a little more about Nagarro later, is the possibility to learn new things. I've been working in the data and AI space like forever. When you do 20 years, you do say 20 plus, you don't add more years of that, it's like 20 and plus. And when I joined Nagarro, I saw that the metaverse was an amazing space to be, but that wasn't all the time. The first time I heard metaverse was my son, a few years back, he's 10 at the point, he said to me, "Mom, I need to have Oculus glasses." I'm like, "No, you have already a PlayStation. Why you need that?" Because I didn't know better. For me, it was like, it's another gaming tool, but actually it's not. And if you haven't tried, you should do it there in the break, because we have actually with us, because it's a totally different experience. And when I joined Nagarro, I have the possibility to actually to see in action and to understand the possibilities. And I'm sold, and that's why I'm here. I'm really passionate. I'm not an expert. I'm just passionate about this topic. But I have an expert with me, so you have there my colleagues that will allow you to ask questions, more technical questions than me. Normally I fake it because it's like, yes. What is Nagarro and who we are? Nagarro is a large global engineering company. We call ourselves the global company with a local touch. We are, I think, until yesterday, 19,500. We are a little bit more now. Based at 35 countries, and we have, we call it hubs. We have offices all over the place. Nagarro, normally we have people first, and then maybe we have an office if the people want. It's a little different way that the consulting companies does it. So it's like we don't have a headquarter. Every time somebody asks, "Where's your headquarters?" It's like, we don't have. So actually we don't. Actually, even if when we have in teams, I'm talking to my colleagues, I never see where they are from. We actually remove the location. I know how many hours away from me they are, but I don't know where. And actually makes really, really much fun when you do work in projects. Even if we are global, we have actually more than 600 consultants working here for Swedish companies. And we have big names like ASSA ABLOY is one of the, we do a lot of technology here. Another companies that we will mention maybe during this talk. But it's a really fun company to be. And Nagarro started the metaverse journey. Let me see if I can make it. No, it went too fast. Now. Great. As I mentioned to you, Nagarro loves to invest, to check new technology. And we had extensive experience in extended reality for a while. So when 2021, the metaverse hit the market, we thought that this is a technology we want to investigate. Well, we started looking at the metaverse. And we saw that in the industrial space, it had a little bit of, I will not say it makes sense, but it makes sense in that area. And thank you to a collaboration with our clients, which actually to the journey of the Inaverse. That is what you're going to see if you want to join in the demo, and why we're here today. So when we talk about the metaverse, the first thing that comes to your mind is gaming, doesn't it? Yes. Perfect. Otherwise, I have to redo the presentation if you're not saying that. Of course, gaming was the first thing you see, the first thing that you think about it, and actually makes sense. Also that human avatar that is also really part of, you connect to the metaverse. And I always make a joke that I will never have an avatar that looks like me. I would rather have something totally different, but that's another story. You will also have, the time slide is not, I don't know. Let's see. Can you give me when you have a few minutes left, please? Thank you. Of course, you connect to the metaverse also to the actually hardware. And we know that the metaverse itself, because of the hardware is still a little bit not so mature, it's still heavy and a little bit costly. It will take time until you have that kind of devices where it's easy to, you know, a little bit like the, what is that movie? Ready Player One, have you seen it? I don't think that will be our future, but something like that, maybe. But for us, and now I've lost my, do we have it? Yes, yeah. For us, the metaverse is a little bit more. It's about immersive experience, where you can actually interact virtually with, for example, a machine or a tool. For us, it's also the digital twins. And a lot of people connect to the industrial metaverse to the digital twins. But we will speak a little bit about this later on. And we also talk about virtual collaboration, when you can actually bring people around and have that immersive experience and collaborate in the metaverse. So this is one of so we start with the gaming part, and then we go the human avatars, and then we start working our place to the industrial metaverse when we see a big potential in use case and how to it will be involved the whole way we work with smart factories, new prototyping, a lot of these areas where the potential in the metaverse is actually really, really big. Actually, I saw it, I sent a colleague to Fredrik, I sent an email. I said, like, metaverse is dead. I saw an article. Have you heard it? Have you read it? Somebody said, the metaverse is dead. I'm like, oh my God, we need to cancel this. No. But actually, it's not totally true. There's a lot of research going on about the potential of the metaverse, and in particular in the industrial metaverse, where they still see companies investing in this. And actually, if you look at Siemens together with MIT Technology, a research that you should read it, really interesting about how much companies will invest in the industrial metaverse. And if you're breaking down and you see the prediction that they're having from today until 2030, you see that it's still a prediction, but the industrial metaverse is where we will see the big effort coming, and how both the commercial and the enterprise level will maybe not be that strong. And this is something that is really interesting to see, that companies have seen the potential. And at some point, and I guess it's a time of wait for both the hardware to be easier and cheaper. And then, of course, today with the generative AI bringing out, you can do metaverse through just telling the system what to do. You don't need to actually code. So I think it will bring more and more people into that in this industry, because it will be easy for maybe the people that have designers, or people that have dreams that actually now can do it without any code knowledge. And this is happening all over the place. It's not only in the industrial metaverse. You will see this in a lot of the other areas of technology, where you can actually bring more people closer working with this technology. But what is the metaverse? So the metaverse, in just an explanation, we see metaverse is not like a thing. It's a combination of technologies that allow to have that immersive experience between the virtual and the real world. So we talk about, you have extended reality, of course, AI, ML, that is my expertise, that I can talk about forever. Of course, a bit of blockchain, IoT, that we will have Ericsson, I think, talk about this piece. And then we have 5G, also, Telenor is here. And of course, the 3D reconstruction. So this is, again, the metaverse is when you combine, and you don't need to have the glasses to be a metaverse. So don't think about it that the metaverse needs to have that device to experience that immersive experience. It doesn't have to. It's much fun, but it doesn't have to. But it's like this. It always has to be real time. You always have to go 3D. And it also has to be interactive. So this is a little bit of the checkpoints to call it the metaverse. We see 6 main characters, or key characters for the metaverse. And when we talk about boundless, that's what we mean about there's no barriers between real and virtual or digital. One of the things that's important in the industrial metaverse that in the virtual world, it has to be exactly a copy of the real world. You cannot go flying and stuff like that you do in gaming. So you have to be a replica, and the laws of physics apply also in the metaverse. And that's something that is important to think about it. When you have smart cities, you have actually a replica of a city. And then you add a little bit of maybe AI to have weather change, or how people behave. And this is something that it brings another narrative, but it still is a replica of the real world. Or I actually would love to go flying in it, but that's another story. You have to be immersive. We talked about this before. You have to be that you feel that you're part of that reality. And that's super, super important. And when we talk about industrial metaverse, you can actually interact with in our demo, we have a really cool, you can break down an engine and actually see it, and actually you can grab the piece of the engine. And that immersive makes possibility to actually utilize the metaverse for learning exercise when you need to learn to do something, or you need to, to maybe create new things. Social, of course, it will be super sad if you are alone in the metaverse. That will be for real. And human beings are social animals. So of course, in the metaverse, it's important that you allow that social network, to, no matter where you are, a little bit Nagaro, that no matter where you are in the world, you are allowed to come in the metaverse. And it has to be easy. And of course, it has to be persistent. It means that it's even on when you are not on. And this is one of the things that is crucial for the internal metaverse, where you have the machines running in the factory, even if nobody's logging. So this is a little bit the difference between, then we talk about decentralized economy, but in the industrial metaverse, normally centralized because the company has their own metaverse. That point of the Ready Player One, where you can jump from the metaverse, I don't think we still have a lot of issues on security and connectivity and protocols. Maybe it will come, I will not be, but it's not today. We define, there's a lot of definition. You have, I think you've seen 7, 9 layers of the metaverse, but we like the 5 layers of the metaverse. And of course, you need to have that infrastructure, your sensors, devices, on a connectivity IoT. That's obvious. And it's a little bit for all the technologies, not only about the metaverse, but we always try to make it simple to understand what is the components of a technology. It's like when we talk about generative AI, it's not just you log in and there's a lot of technology and stuff around. You have your platform. You have your IoT platform, you have the blockchain, you have connectors, all the cloud platform, you can think about it. The modeling part is, again, like your 3D modeling, you have your avatars, you have your rules engines, and you need to, how the metaverse will act. And then the interface, this is when they hit you. This is the part you see. So this is the part when you have, your devices, where you can interact with the metaverse. And of course, the experience, when you have that immersive experience and collaboration. So as an end user, here's where you start hitting the metaverse. This is something that is always behind the scenes. And of course, all of this, with any AI or technology platform, you have to have a good integration system. Security is already obvious, and governance. And actually, governance is a part of always is the forgiving child, what do you call it? You talk about now it's AI governance or data governance. So whatever you do in the metaverse, you need to have the governance piece and the security in place, and also integration. Data security. If you do it later, it costs more than do it before. So later is most costly than before. We have prepared a video to summarize our Innaverse that we'll share with you. And I hope that you, if you haven't tried, do it and come to Gandipa there to do the. So let's see if is this. Oh my God, it worked. How do I do it? It's not coming sound? Thank you. That's me for now. What? Yeah. I'm like, what happened now? Too much. I think I'm running was a little bit longer. Sorry. So what do I do now? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't gonna need it. I'm gonna take this one instead. We do like that. Okay, cool. So, not good morning, but hello everyone. So my name is Thomas Benz and I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Around the Corner. And we are a very, very small company and we work with the very, very largest companies to help companies to understand what you actually can do with Metaverse and how you can use 3D environments in different aspects. So what I will do now, I will showcase the different things that we actually do and what you actually can start with and how to kind of grasp this new technology. And one thing that always hit me is like when we talk about this, we always have slides and pictures, but we don't actually use the platforms. So I will walk around there and do a demo of, and of course we don't have the connectivity, so I do just like this. So So one thing that I think is important is like, because if you look at metaverse from an industrial space, it's like you have all these different possibilities, and you have IoT, and you have connectivity, and you have like large scales 3D models. You can do so many different things. And that is really good, because then you can see the potential. But as a company, this is a new technology, so you need to start somewhere doing the easy things. So when I work with our clients, I always say, like, what you should do is you start with your management team or your project team or a small team, and just enter a 3D space through computers. If you have headset, use them and so on, just to get familiar with how you actually feel walking around in a 3D environment. So what we do, we use all kind of different platforms. We are platform agnostic. So as you can see, this is just a regular web link. So it's no download client. I don't need to install any privacy. Yeah, so everything is just online. So what I do is I click the link, and I will actually end up with giving you a QR code, so you actually can walk in through an environment just to see this. But what we will do, we will start with see what we can do here, and I will do like this. Okay.
Welcome to this, the fourth in our series of lockdown glimpses of the Charterhouse. I'm Anne Kenrick, Master of the Charterhouse, and you find me today in the cloisters, which is the oldest part of the building.
So this is kind of like super simple. It is a video. Normally, if you have a website, you can just put up a video and walk around and so on. But the cool thing here is when I actually start to walk around, I'm in this space that it actually talks about. Now I'm alone because it's nobody here, but I could also have a class or colleagues, or do a demo of an facility or whatever. There's so many different things that you can do. But we want to add a couple of things here, so we can change the scene. And one thing that actually started the whole metaverse or 3D space environment was this little fellow. You remember that one? Have you actually been inside this to see how it actually looks like? Because we have seen this model quite many times, but we haven't really like understood how it works and what we can do, because this comes actually from a large protein conference we did during the pandemic. There were 400 different researchers from all around the world, and have all these different proteins, and what they could do is walk into these different proteins, and they actually had meetings and conferences within a protein and could point, and that is like, okay, we haven't done that before. And what they said afterwards was like, this is so good, because there's actually a better way to have a conference when we talk about these tiny things, instead of having a physical conference. So they have continued with that. So we can be inside a protein, and we can do like the small things very large, and of course the other way, large things very small. But we continue, and let's do another scene. So when we talk about metaverse, from my perspective, from our perspective, it's like, what is important is that you should strengthen your competitiveness and also create measurable results, because it is a fun thing. It is very fun, but you also need to have some kind of idea of how does this affect our business? How does it add value to our operations? Because if you're doing as a marketing activity, then it's just something that will live for a few months or even less. And today, talking about metaverse from a marketing perspective is not really that interesting. So if we have a client coming to us and say, we want to do a marketing or PR campaign, then we say, well, then you need to find another supplier, because what we do is we bring value to companies, and that is super important. But you need to start somewhere. And looking at this, and oh, that's a really small picture. Let's do that one. Large, of course. So McKinsey did, for a year ago, a research and asked 258 senior executives what they actually are doing within these companies. And for a year ago, 1.5, it was a lot of marketing, because then was the super hype. It was pre-generative AI and GPT. So until then, metaverse were the most hyped word in the tech industry. So, but it doesn't really that like that anymore. But then learning and development, meeting in metaverse, events, conferences, product design, digital twins, as we talked about, recruiting, onboarding. These things is now the things that are happening. There are so many different companies that start with this and say, okay, we have different project meetings, or we work with one company that have all the digital interviews when they do onboarding and recruiting in a metaverse, because they can show how it actually looks like and feels like within how it is to work in the offices and so on. So these are the things that, like, okay, let's have an idea. Can we actually make our operations better in some of these different fields? How can 3D environments actually add a value to something that we don't have? And of course, you can visualize again the big things and make them very small, and we can jump into this. And now, of course, when we are in Linköping, you know what this is? This building? Someone? Studenthuset, of course. So we can walk into Studenthuset, but this is still a kind of tiny model. So let's jump over to and go there. And this is also something that is quite cool, because you can jump around and you can be in different environments. You can have fictive environments, or like this. You can actually visualize an actual building. So this is, as you can see now, you can recognize it. And you have the environments around. So you can showcase different environments, and okay, this is our space. We have the production facility or whatever. And we can actually see what they are doing with this. So they have different events and different meetings. They can hang out with friends or having different classes and so on. So Linköping University have created this as an something that they can provide everyone that's connected to LiU and use it in different ways. So we can walk in here, and of course, as you can see now, I'm still alone, but sometimes it's like 50, 60 persons, and it's really fun because you can see how everyone walks around trying to, a little bit like kids in kindergarten, like you walk around and then you're like, oh, how do I do this? And can you hear me? And the sound doesn't work, because when I walk away from you, it kind of disappears. Oh, that's because it's spatial sound, so it works like in the physical environment. But we can look at another movie here, just to explain how you can work with this from a... Oh, perfect. Let's see, we do like this.
Okay, so my name is Anne-Claude Gingras, and I'm a professor at the University of Toronto, and my laboratory is at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto. This is the first time that I wear a virtual reality hat ever. So yes, it's my first conference in virtual reality as well. Again, like I'm an older professor, an older lady. So for me, it was a huge learning curve, but I can totally imagine that for younger people, that this is something that they would feel much more comfortable with. But I think it probably allows the younger people to be able to break the ice with the speakers much more easily, right? Because everybody is the same. Everybody looks like a cute little avatar, and I think it might be a good way to democratize a lot more scientific conferences, right? Which doesn't tend to be, you know, at scientific meeting usually have the older crowd and the younger crowd, and they don't tend to mix. And I think that might be a good way to do this kind of mixing between different people, so that younger, newer students might actually feel quite comfortable to ask professors questions, and vice versa, actually.
Actually 68 or something. And what they figured out when they had this conference is that students, just as it says, had much more easy access to actually walk up front to a professor and start to talk. And there were always this icebreaker, like, oh, you have such a cute avatar, or you have such a funny hair, or whatever. So it's really easy for people to connect in a different way. And just imagine if you sit in a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, and then you have this breakout session, so you have like 20, 30 persons in small boxes, and say, well, let's mingle, let's have a normal conversation, and everyone is dead quiet. And if you say something, it needs to be super smart, because you know you have all other looking at you and like, oh, no, that was not that smart. And in here, you like talk as normal, which is also, you need to kind of try it to understand it. And of course, when you do meetings here, you can share webcam, because if I'm standing here and having a presentation, I want to show myself also, not as an avatar, but I also want to show my face expressions and everything. So then I can switch on my webcam and talk like this. So it's also another way to have webinars and presentations. And of course, this is a little robot, and we can say hello. So this is a small robot that is connected to GPT-4. So, hello, Thomas Benz. How can I assist you today? So then you can actually stand here together with your colleagues or students or whatever, and use GPT as well, included into these environments. And this connection is very important, because metaverse and generative AI is not two different technologies that is separate from each other. They are melting together in so many different ways. So you can add new values to using generative AI, and also to use 3D environments in different ways. So this is fun just to play around with. You can do so many different things. And as you can see, this is a quite large environment, and you can do breakout sessions, and people can walk around, mingle. You can have all different activities. But if you're going more to another industry, we can jump over to this one. We work a lot with Sweco in society building environment. I watch at you, 3 minutes more, perfect. So one thing when it comes to society building, and the most probably the most difficult word in English, something like that, kommuner. I never learned that, which is kind of fun. So what they do is also looking at how you can interact with citizens, so citizen dialogue. And today it's kind of analog, because you have like these posters that you're putting up in libraries and where you can find people, and you always have kind of same persons are coming and looking at this and say, yeah, it looks better before, so don't do anything, which is a kind of a big problem, because it is by law you need to have a citizen dialogue. So what they are doing now is working with 3D models, inviting people into different scenarios. And here we can have this. In this scenario, you have if someone from Norrköping, then you might recognize this building. It's Magnetus Tower. It's 9 floors, but if we simulate that I live in this flat here, it's kind of my morning sun disappeared because this new building. I say, I don't want to have that. Okay, then we take away the top floors, so you can have your morning sun. The effect of that is that we actually lose 300 workplaces. And how does that affect the surrounding area, the stores and everything around that? And then you can have a discussion. Or in this scenario, you can have another building structure, and just, okay, what does it mean with that? It looks better, but it's more expensive, but it's more cost efficient, and so on. So you can do all these simulations and also have this dialogue with people in a whole other way. And finally, we should just jump over here, because now my time is over. But we will go to Ericsson in Kista. And anyone, where do we have an Ericsson representative? That's you. Oh, there you go. You have in the head office the open box, which is an event space where you do all the different things. And you recognize it? You've been there? So this is an digital twin of that space. And we did with Ericsson for a couple of weeks ago, a large physical event, but also from everyone that was joining digitally, they were in this space. So they were actually... Then we start to talk about hybrid meeting for real, because in the pauses, the people that were in this environment could walk around and talk with each other. and discussing the different topics and things like that. And the physical people were in the physical space. And then we had headsets, so the physical people could walk into this environment and talk with them. And it's like you kind of blend these two different worlds together. And I think I have a colleague somewhere walking around here. He's probably somewhere. But just to end up this, why are we so interested in this? And I don't know if you have seen this short video.
With ultra realistic face.
So this is actually an avatar. And they used they used the Quest Pro headset, and as you can see, it is almost impossible to see that it is avatars. So this technology already exists, and now you see the headset. You can try it later on, but this is the evolution of the metaverse, and doing faces is the most difficult thing that you can do, because there's so many different with muscles and expressions and eyes and everything. So when you do this and kind of like, okay, now we have the blueprint of doing the most difficult things, then everything up to that will be piece of cake. So we will go to the super photorealistic environments with people. So when in 3 years, then when have done my talk and everything here, you will take off your headsets and you will be in totally another environment, but your brain will with here, and you will speak with everyone in this way. So that's where we are headed. So thank you, Mark, and everyone else. Short, and I can talk of this. Later on, my colleague Håkan, where are you there? He will also demonstrate with headsets over there, so you can actually walk into environment and speak with each other and try different things. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. When we switch computers here, there's a consortium that is now founded. So if you're interested later on, there are so many different companies that want to help other companies to start and understand what you can do with these different things. So come to me later on and I can tell more about how you can join this consortium. Thank you.
Vad är Telenor på den? Ja, exakt. Har du extendat? Jag tror att du kanske behöver duplicera. Ja. So happy to be here. My name is Malina. I'm working with 5G within Telenor. So as explained earlier, 5G is a carrier of metaverse. So what I'm doing is basically driving the strategy and the commercial side of advanced 5G services within Telenor. So we will go through a bit what that is, and then in the workshop later we will deep dive this. But my responsibility is for sure the strategy and the commercial side of our 5G rollout. Before we start to talk about advanced 5G services, I would like to go back and kickstart with some disruptive areas. I think you know the smartphone, everyone has it today. That's a disruptive market that has been growing from earlier on. I think it's hard to, or it was hard to imagine what we would do with our phones today when 4G was rolled out. And I think when looking into 5G, it's important to understand that that's the situation we are within now. So even though our minds can think about different innovations and solutions, it's still very hard to imagine what will actually happen in the next 10 years before we start to roll out 6G. But I would like to talk about 5G because that's a paradigm shift that we are within from a technology perspective, which is important to solve to scale on 6G and later on as well. And that's why it's so interesting from a technology perspective, but also from a market perspective. The car is also another disruptive market. Of course, the car has developed a lot. Today is basically a computer. You can lease a car. We're talking about autonomous cars. And from a transport industry perspective, you want to have contact with the end user with apps and applications. So a big area that has been growing, which is also disruptive from horses since before. 5G is disruptive. And this is very important to understand because disruptive markets it's kind of too late when it starts to scale. And I think AI with ChatGPT is very interesting from a market perspective. If you are in tech, you know that this technology has been ongoing for years. It's not new. But what is new with ChatGPT was that it has a market acceptance. And that's really key. If you are looking into technology into a market perspective and actual acceptance, that's when we see the money, that's when we see the growth. And from a enterprise or a company perspective, that's where you need to be in. Because when it scales, it can be too late. 5G is disruptive. The market value in Sweden around 2026 is around 17 billion Swedish kronor. So it's a huge market. Okay, so advanced 5G services, it comes with new functionalities. Network slicing is one. So when talking about industrial metaverse, you talked about real-time analysis. It's a lot of big applications that needs to have high bandwidth and a lot of compute. Network slicing is the function within the 5G network that can perform that. So from our perspective, we can give you specific parameters within your connectivity. So as a mobile customer today, you are buying a SIM card and you have a subscription and that's it. And if it's New Year's Eve, it will be hard to call your family. But with network slicing, we are able to configure that and make a prioritization within our network. So you can actually get a quality of service with promised low latency that is needed for your application. Network APIs is another advanced 5G services that is new. So as a telco, we are hiding everything. So it's a black box. And there is reasons for that. But with 5G, we will be able to give you network APIs, which means that you can actually integrate your application towards a network and make sure that your application is changing the parameters within the network throughout APIs. It can also consume data, so network data points. One example of that is positioning. So instead of having like some big thing on your solution that is handling the position of your service, you can gain that from the SIM card. So that's a huge difference. We also talk about edge computing, so moving the actual application closer towards the end user. So instead of building data centers or enterprise IT services, you will be able to pay as you go and get that in as a service kind of model. Data sovereignty, this is something, I will not talk so much about that today, but I think it's important because we as telcos, we are heavily regulated. We are not able to sell the data we have, but we have a lot of data of our users. And that's a big difference towards like hyperscalers or big American cloud companies. So when talking about the regulation around the AI Act, for example, or Cloud Act or Schrems II, there's a lot of discussions within the EU because the world will be more digitalized, but how to do that in a safe manner. And as a telco, we actually have a footprint to take there because we are heavily regulated. And this is something that I think is very important, the Telenor think is very important to put into the context of advanced 5G services. So when you are building your solutions within the 5G services that we have, we would like to have a solution that is performing that, but that also adds complexity into the solution. So to summarize what advanced 5G services is basically new features that will come with low latency. Low latency for me is below 5 to 10 milliseconds. It's the mobility requirements. You can have a use case that is within nationwide, moving around in Sweden. And what is key here is that it integrates the network with the cloud. So that's, I think, to simplify what 5G advanced services is, that's it. So it comes with new features, new technologies, but it's really one solution for both network and cloud. So compute and network in one solution. I'm trying to show it here in a very simple manner, but this is more from our perspective, how we are rolling this out. But we're actually handling your network features, your usage within our network in the same platform as we are handling compute, so IT workloads. We're looking into edge computing or edge cloud and the slicing parameters. What will happen from a metaverse perspective, of course, you will get the real-time analysis, but you will also be able to move the compute from the actual device into the network, which will make the device smaller, which is good. You can move around with it, so it actually can be integrated to the city. I saw one example of that. So the 5G network is a carrier for that. And what's also important with the real-time analysis is that I think Vision Sweden had a really good picture here at the beginning with the sensors. Because what research has shown is that even though you may not see the latency, because from our eye perspective it can be good, you will feel sick in such environment for a long time because your brain are really feeling the latency even though the eyes. But the 5G is solving that. We are talking about 5G today, so what are we doing right now from a Telenor and other operator perspective is that we are securing capacity within our network. We are making sure that you have better speed, but we're also making sure that we have better coverage. And that's wave 1 to 4, and it's for our fixed wireless access, it's for the mobile use cases, it's for the mobile broadband use cases, and old IoT. So our old usage and old technologies, what we're doing now is make sure that they get 5G. But what I'm talking about is wave 5. And this is what is disruptive. And that's really, really key. So what you see right now, that's not real 5G yet. It's just us securing that our coverage within Sweden and also where we are have the capacity to actually carry these innovations later on. That is also the reason why it may be hard for you to pay extra for 5G, because what are you using it for? I mean, YouTube works quite well already. But you don't see the innovations yet that will scale on 5G and that will utilize the capacity that we are building out right now. But this is really hard for us to do. And I think I would not like to romanticize this. One part is to make sure that you know what to do. Another part is to make sure that we can actually perform this in a good manner. Because you would like to have SLAs, quality of service. If we are promising you below 5 milliseconds for your slice, that creates a lot of complexity for us. The reason why we're not able to do that with the other Gs is because we are operating in a centralized stack, which means that we are putting everything to the same servers and then out. So it's like a queue kind of system. But with 5G, we will need to go from this to a decentralized stack. And this is a huge change for us. And we also need to do that in a legacy environment that we have. And this is a big, big complexity. I promise a timeline. So what we have done within Telenor is that we have launched commercial mobile private networks. That's like the first generations of network slicing or the slicing capacity. Ericsson will talk a bit about the dedicated ones, but we have launched some solutions within the commercial side. So you're actually able to test your innovations within real 5G services, even though it's not part of like the macro environment yet. But that's launched. We are involved in research project to secure the operations and how to handle these innovations, such as that we monetize on the telco edge cloud, and also slicing, of course. So before we actually do something, we need to understand, okay, what do we need to do? Because low latency is not binary. It has different aspects. 2023, so next year, we start to ramp up our slicing services, our mobile private network services, which means that we are getting closer to real 5G, advanced 5G features. So we're preparing for that. We are upgrading, of course, with real network slicing. and that's based on the brain of our network. That will be the part of centralization and decentralization. So the decentralization will be there. We start to prepare, not being able to actually bring the performance of securing capacity and handling all the workloads, but we are preparing for that. That will happen 2024, 2025. And then the new use cases will come around that. So in 2024, if you haven't started to explore your innovations right now or even started to develop them, 2024, I would say it's late, but that's the time to get some real 5G into your solutions to start to drive that innovation into a more commercial manner from your perspective. And then 2025 to 2027, that's when you will see the edge compute and the real advanced 5G services for real. So if you are not targeting the 2025 to 27, from an innovation perspective, it may be too late because we know that competitors are already doing it. And we already have discussions with them in this stage. This is super complex for us, and I think if you read about the telco environment right now, it's a threat landscape. We will get new competitors. It's super hard. It's so tough to go from the centralized. If you're a developer, you may imagine how hard it is to have 2.8 million customers in your network that are required. They need the service to be up and running, and take that into decentralized context with Kubernetes and DevOps orchestration. That's really hard to do, but we need to do it, and we need to start somewhere. But it's also for you to start to explore this right now, because as I said, it's not science fiction anymore, it's actually happening and it's getting real. And that's how I would like to end this presentation.
This dual screen, so it's not showing it.
Is this the presentation?
Yeah, yeah.
There you are. You want to have it like full screen?
Yeah, but when we tried it before, it was going over, right? No, that's hers. That was a different.
Is this yours?
Okay, it could be. Yeah, we can step. Then we need.
Maybe close this one.
Huh? So you close this?
But this is not your presentation, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's coming.
Oh, okay.
This is
a bit slow, right?
Yeah, no. Now it's coming.
Yeah.
So I'm switching PCs. Yeah. There.
And then I press play here to make it full screen.
Where?
It's not highlighted. It's like here. Yeah. Play here. Press play. And hopefully it goes to that one. But I don't know.
That's not. Yeah. Well, it goes back here. Okay. Oh, that's.
Well, can you go to it like from? Just one by one.
Okay. Step through that.
It's just unresponsive.
Mm.
Responding when I click.
It's coming sooner.
Just tell me when to stop.
Yeah, go. This is the video. One more or two more. Here, yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay. Sorry for the delay here. So yes, I'm Fredrik Salin here from Nagarro. So I'm working with our industrial companies in Europe, and metaverse is of course one of the topics that we are discussing with them. And I'm here today to present our joint report that we produced together with Visual Sweden. So we were actually a year ago thinking about how could we find out a little bit more on how mature is the Swedish market compared to the global market, European market. So why don't we go out and ask the companies? And so we partnered up with Visual Sweden, and we did this study and approached about 100 Swedish enterprise customers, everything from small, medium, and large industrial companies. And we conducted a survey, and then we did some deep interviews. We ran some workshops and so on to get insights and to get knowledge to produce this report that I will talk a bit more about. And you already learned that metaverse is not a single technology. It's an umbrella of different technologies. And the interesting thing is that all of these technologies have reached different maturity levels. Everybody knows about cloud and have been working with it for a long time and so on. IoT, machine learning, AI, reality, VR, and then 5G is not as mature yet, but our friends from the telecom business are pushing it really hard. And then we have blockchains and other technologies. And we think when we combine all these technologies, that's when we get the real benefits and are utilizing it in the metaverse. And all of the cloud, IoT, and AI and so on, companies have already for several years been using these technologies to build solving problems which are not directly metaverse, but they're solving the problems that they're there for. Also, one of the questions that we ask is how mature are you? Are you making plans for the future? How far have you come? So we could see that almost half of the respondents, half of the companies, at least within 2 years, have either started to build their roadmap or are executing against it, or will start their plan to take next step. But then the most obvious thing is that why would you use an industrial metaverse in the first place? And of course, all the companies are there for the business, and the use cases which are most appealing is of course the one that are revenue driven. So it's no surprise that the business to business use cases are the primary drivers. That's nothing strange. And then of course we see other external interactions with partners, which come into second place, which makes sense. Even though you would think that the easiest to start with would probably be to do it in-house, to start with your onboarding or your employees and training and so on. And of course that's a big part, but it's not the biggest driver that why the enterprise or why the companies want to invest money in creating a roadmap and create use cases. And then of course, when you have identified who you want to target and why you want to target them, then you drill down on the real use cases itself. And we are talking a bit here today about the digital twin. And digital twin in an industrial metaverse context, we define it as either the simplest way of form or shape could be a digital copy of a physical asset, a machine or something. But then you can take it to the next step. It could be a part of a process, so it's a part of an assembly line. So you have several machines that interacting, for example. And then there can be like a system where you have a whole factory or you have the enterprise where you also have the whole supply chain, which could be internal, external, and everything is connected. So that's of course a journey. Most people, when they talk about or think of a digital twin, they think of a digital identical copy of a physical asset. But of course there are other use cases that are quite interesting. Learning, training, and showcasing in various forms, of course, interesting. And when we dig down a little bit and asked, depending on what kind of size the company was, we could see that they were a little bit differentiated. The bigger companies, they aim, I would say, a little bit higher because they might have a higher budget. So they want to start a little bit more in a more complex way, which is the digital twin, because the digital twin affects many things. You need the IoT, you need to collect the data, you need the security things, you need the communication, and you need many of the metaverse elements to be able to achieve that. But most large companies are at least on the track or planning to have a digital twin. And then we could see smaller or mid-sized companies, they are more, maybe they don't have the muscle to invest that money, so they want to start in showcasing their products or their facilities and so on for customers. And we have one customer or we have many customers, but one of the customers in Sweden, they actually said that they are producing really big machines, and of course it's a challenge or a problem to bring that big machine to the customer and see and showcase it. So. And especially because the customer wants it in their environment. So why don't create a copy of their environment and then bring in the machine into that? And that's a perfect match, for example, as a use case. During the study as well, we, of course, asked a lot of questions and learned and got a lot of insights. And for this particular company, which is a large global company that doesn't want to showcase their name, but they are also in this neighborhood. And they said that, okay, all products that we ship today, we don't only ship the product, we also always ship the digital product, a digital twin of the product. But our next goal is to actually go back 10, 20 years, things that we delivered, and make those digital twin of those products as well, because they need our customers, and we need to simulate what will happen, and we need to learn more how to service them and so on. But of course, that creates another challenge: who owns the data? How secure is the transformation, and if you have sold the product, who owns the data that comes from that product, and if the company wants to sell services to them, is that okay to do that based on their data? And so there are many not technical challenges, but more morality, and you need to agree on how to do it. We have identified more than 70 use cases during our study, and depending on how mature the company is, so we see that many that have not started really, but they want to get started. We see that maybe when we hire some people, we want to get them started with the onboarding process, for example. And then when they're a little bit more mature, of course, product digital twin is coming into play. That's quite common. And then when they're really more mature or have at least tried a few use cases, they want to take the next step of the digital twin to include the whole factory, for example. But a really big area is the maintenance inspection and predictive maintenance, because if many companies want to sell the product as a service these days, wheelchair as a service or bearing as a service and so on. And in order to do that, you need to have your business model in place, and you need to know what will happen tomorrow or the day after and so on. So predictive maintenance, remote guidance and things like that are technologies that comes into play, and doing simulations with your products, for example. So this is just a a small footprint of all the use cases, and we are more than happy to talk about more use cases with you later. And as I said, we have produced this report together with Visual Sweden. It was publicly available here released in June this year, so it's quite fresh. So it's called Reimagining Metaverse for Industrial Enterprises. It will talk about the risk and challenges, it talk about use cases, and it also includes a metaverse playbook, how to get started, what to think of, and what to maybe possibly to avoid as well. So you can scan the code there, or you can talk to anyone here from Nagaro or my other friends here if you want your own copy, if you don't have time to scan it there. And before I end here, there's some. When you signed up for this event, there was also a question if you're interested to have what we call a small mini use case workshop to talk about how to get started, or any of the use cases that we have mentioned. So some of you will have some workshops after lunch, and there are actually some people that got sick that were supposed to have one. So if there are people here that are interested to talk a bit more in details, feel free to do that. And also we have also announced that if you want to get started, but maybe you don't have the funding fully, or you don't know where to start and so on, we are also prepared to do a co-investment in that POC or the project, that if you want to start it to up to 100,000 crowns. I was told that we should have like a 5 minutes leg stretcher and refill the coffee before we have the final 3 speakers, where we'll go into more telecom, we'll go into XR displays, and we will also look into 2024 and beyond. Yeah, thank you very much for me, and grab some coffee and be on your ass again in 5 minutes.
All right. Welcome back after the break, as they always say after the commercials. So happy to be here. My name is Morten Beckman. I work for Ericsson, the part that is focusing on enterprise wireless solutions. And I work with a product called EP5G. That's part of what we call dedicated networks that Malina referred to earlier. And I will cover today a little bit why we are in the perfect spot for talking about this technology right now, with a good introduction from the former speakers. A little bit what demanding our technology, but also how it looks like in the end. For those of you who like to touch products, I don't have them here, but I will show a little bit how it look like and explain how easy it is to deploy. So a little bit of a sales pitch. But first of all, why 5G is the technology that will make things happen, I think has been presented, but I will replicate a little bit about that. We have a cellular technology that is worldwide standard. That is a fantastic platform. You have all been using it in your private usage when you talk about smartphones. The capability of the cellular technology is much, much better than that. And I think now with the use cases that are coming up, asked from especially industry and enterprises, it start to match. So the use case being developed and talked about a little bit today are requesting exactly this technology. Then there are other wireless technologies that are around. We believe though that that is not up to the mark or is proven. And I will talk about that a little bit in a few examples. So what do we see happening here? And we've been talking about a few of these examples earlier. We split up the use cases in 3 segments. There are many ways of doing it. Digitalization is what's driving quite a few of the enterprise use cases today. And the reason for that is that they need data out of the environment in order to start improve efficiency, improve quality, improve mobility, meaning that they can have competence, not specifically on site, etc. They need to digitalize. We talked about preventive maintenance. You need to have data from sensors. There is a lot of data that is need to be pulled out from the process or from the business, but also to be sent back to start act on it. And that is what they refer to the digital twin. So when you talk about digital twins being used in processes, you need to be there with the data and start executing. Otherwise, you sit in the rear and you take decisions that you need to implement later on. You want to be real time in. And this is just starting in whatever consulting or software company that works with industry, they will have this in their portfolio. And the reason is that you can do so much more than you have done before. And the fun thing to work with this is that, and I meet with companies every week, is they come from so many different angles. But one thing that is common is they are a little bit in a legacy platform, and they wonder how can I adopt into this. And I want to be clear from the start. What technology I'm going to talk about today is not a rip and replace. It's a complement to what's already existing, and that's the beauty of it. It's an overlay on top, and then you move over the use cases you have. So brownfield, no problems. Okay, we have talked about augmented workers and metaverse. That's the topic of today. I will touch on that. But I think what is the key is to understand why hasn't this taken off. These use cases have been around for many years. It's nothing new if you take one by one of them. They have these AMRs or AGVs running around in most factories. You have smart tools that are wireless. You have tablets. You have everything that more or less is required in sensors to make this happen. But why hasn't it blooming? Why hasn't it bloomed yet? Because it hasn't. And one thing is that it is not industry standard on the connectivity. It is best effort connectivity in most factories when you talk about wireless. And that's why you, as a responsible for the operations and production, you cannot rely 100% that this will work. So if there are mission critical processes, which most of them are, either that is because of security or because of efficiency, you want to make sure this works 24/7 every time. And that is not where connectivity has been, but it's here now. Okay? So then start talking about it in pieces. The first one, mobility. So if you want to have use cases that we talked about earlier, you have to make them mobile. They cannot be wired. Very few of these can be wired. Okay, you can have sensors, that's fair. But the sensor cannot be wired all over the place. They need to take the data from the sensor somewhere, and you want to move this equipment around. If you look into a modern way of producing, you're quite flexible because there are many different products and variants, and you need to shift. But mobility is not only about having not a wire, it's also that you can be all over the place. So if you look into steel plant or a nuclear plant or a mine or a large manufacturing site, it shouldn't matter whether you're inside where you have a hotspot or you're outside where you have all the trucks parked or where the steel is lying for send off. It needs to be an opportunity to be mobile across this place. So is it that the case today with today's technology? If you use Wi-Fi, hardly you will have that outside. If you use Wi-Fi inside, you probably have drops between the hotspots or the connecting points. So what about cellular technology? So I have a quite cool anecdote from here, Linköping, where we tested the LTE technology. How good is the mobility? And now I'm not talking about coverage, because that we know. We're talking about how quickly can you move around in a mobile landscape without having a problem. So to pressure test that, they used one of the aircrafts here, an SK-60, I think it is called, and run it with 500 kilometers per hour between Linköping and Västervik, connecting with 2 base stations, streaming video with 20 megabit per second with a perfect handover. So that's where the technology was 10 years back. Then you can understand that this is not the problem today. So it works perfectly for exactly that use case. You want to be mobile. Okay, very few use cases has 500 kilometers per hour, but you don't want to have a drop. That is a key thing. The second one, we have talked about that, and that is reality. Okay, we're not 100% reality. It's true. But when you're down to single digit milliseconds in delay, you're very close to it. Closer than actually our body is in some perspective, from the sense to the signal goes to the brain. And it's important, as Malina said, if you're going to talk metaverse or use cases where you start interacting with digital twin and you start acting, you have these bars, you want to maneuver, whether that is a robot or you want to maneuver tools or when you do surgery, I mean, all these cool use cases. If you want to move that into production, again, being mission critical, and you want to know that it works. Today I'm going to do this, and it's going to happen this time, and it will happen. It's not only that you need to be in availability and secure connectivity, it also needs to be real time. Otherwise, it's going to be seasickness, and that is proven. So you need to be down on this level, and it needs to work. And I think the other part that most industries require now is not so much the reality part. There is very few that request this millisecond latencies. So far, it will come, especially with the metaverse use case and a few others. But this one, the availability and reliability of the connectivity, that has been the turning point. So the use case I showed earlier, some of them being deployed in, for example, again, cannot say the customer name, but it's a large car manufacturer that put this technology in, start running their AMRs, where they are transporting the car body, and where they meet, when the chassis meets the top, it's called the marriage point. And this marriage point is a crucial point in time, because that is depending on, when you put that in time, the speed you can do that, the pace, is setting the pace of the production of the car factory. So they could double that speed, moving over to a cellular technology, because there was absolutely no drip, and there was 100% availability. So the point here is that networks need to be up 100% of the time, but not only that. If you want to require a certain bandwidth and a certain latency, it needs to be that, nothing less than that. And if you can guarantee that, you can start move your process into this, and you can start doing whether you want the metaverse things scheduled or just production line activities scheduled, but you know you will get the efficiency out that you asked for. And this is a super important thing. So, isn't that the case with every technology? No. And the reason is, in cellular technology, that is a license spectrum. If whatever you're going to do, you need to send data. And data to be sent is going to consume a certain bandwidth. And that means you need to have secured that bandwidth. Otherwise, you don't know. So that means you need to have your pipe for yourself, whether that is a sliced, guaranteed by Malina, or, as I will come to in a moment, another alternative, in order to know that you have the capacity. Then you also need to know what is consuming that capacity. So it's not consumed by someone just going in with a video on your PC, taking down all the bandwidth for the rest. So that means you need to know that you have the bandwidth, meaning that you have the license spectrum for yourself, which you can get today in Sweden easily. Just apply to PTS and you get 8 megahertz if you want to, or you buy it via Telenor or some of our other CSPs. And you also need to know what devices that are connected, so you know that there is nothing less, nothing more than these that will work, and the priority of those. Then you can put an SLA and you can put a guarantee to the one that's head of production or whatever, responsible that yes, it will work. Because I have the capacity, I know what's going to consume, this is locked in. And that is not possible without a technology less than a cable. So that's the reason for doing this. The final one, that is a huge topic for many, some more than others, that is the security. If you're going to put all this data and all your processes in the hands of this, you need to make sure it's secure. Not only for when it comes to leaking data in and out, but also, of course, that no one else can go in and interrupt it, which is not that uncommon anymore, unfortunately, where you have production stops or blockages. So this technology, based on the 3GPP standard, is pretty safe, I would say. Unhacked so far, my knowledge. Of course, because you have the SIM card technology together with the network controller brain. So that means you cannot put whatever SIM card into this network, so you cannot take that way in. And you cannot go in and connect to the SIM cards that are in, like pretending that you're another base station. Doesn't work either. So it's locked from two ends. And there are other things on the security we can discuss in the breakout. So these 4 groups of arguments that has now become available via this technology is what's getting these use cases to start moving. And because that's why enterprise and manufacturers, mining companies that are moving into this and putting mission critical operations into this perspective. So then you can ask, why do you need to have an own network, or can you run a public? It depends what you look for. If you're going to be typical like a mining company, perhaps it's not super good coverage, it's not possible to get a slice from a CSP. They have to have their business case. If you have a very high consuming data area and perhaps it's going to be a lot of indoor, it's tough with the coverage as well. There are reasons for building a dedicated networks, which I'm selling. And then there are reasons, of course, to mix it with the macro to do hybrid versions. But right now, for the private networks, there's a case where you know exactly these parameters. I have my spectrum, I have my SIM cards, I have it locked in, I can have the edge compute on site, I can make it completely standalone, and this is what's been asked for, especially if you talk mining, nuclear plants, sensible manufacturing. That's the regulation of those kind of processes, and then this product works perfectly. So how does it look? So this is what it is. And in essence, to get a little bit more visualized, you see that sound, whatever stack it is, cut it by half. That's the size of the box that contains the left side. 2 servers keeping the network controller. 2 servers meaning that it is like independent. And we can download software on the lifecycle micromanagement independently, so we keep the uptime to 100%. You have a radio unit, and then we have the radio dots if it's internal, and they are about the size of the ones that are on the roofing there. And with 8 of those, you cover roughly 10,000 square meters optimal. It's very scalable. Today we're rolling out networks that is up to 1 million square meter with this kind of solutions. But the beauty with this from our side, that's the scales, where it scales for Ericsson. We are experts in radio. We were leading in that. The only thing we do is we apply whatever radio you need from our pretty rich portfolio on whatever situation you have, because it's a big difference if you're running a huge mine in Australia, open pit, if you run a port, if you run a wind farm park, or wherever you are. The only thing we do, we complement it with the right kind of radio solution. So you can go from small dots like this, or macro radio covering the area of Västervik and Linköping for an aircraft. So that's more or less the solution. And back to the metaverse topic, I think is an excellent use case, pushing the boundaries and requiring the technique. And as Malina said, if you can take the compute from this pretty ugly wearables that are today that are super heavy, you can take away the battery to something much less, and you can bring the compute more centrally in the edge, and you put it in a private network or in a hybrid for that sake. I think it's going to move quickly. So I'm not sure if there's room for questions here, Fredrik. No? Then we jump to the next speaker. Thank you.
Not be here today, Carl-Johan Palmerius from Linköping University. So I will start a video.
Participants of the Visual Sweden event on the industrial metaverse. My name is Carl-Johan Lundin Palmerius, and I'm associate professor in media technology and visualization at Linköping University. I'm doing research and teaching in virtual reality and display systems. I'm very sorry that I couldn't be here in person, but I'll try to convey my thoughts in this video. So I'll give you some of my perspectives on display systems for extended reality, or XR. An important factor, if not the most important factor in XR, is the sense of immersion of being in the virtual world. The display system, consisting of advanced equipment, provides us with perceptual stimuli that we can call physical immersion. Together with interesting contents and engaging tasks, this leads to mental immersion, presence, the sense of being an integral part of the virtual world. Another important human factor that is often overlooked in XR is proxemics, or personal space. The human species has a defense system that classifies other individuals and allows them differently close depending on your relationship with that person, from intimate to stranger. The exact distances allowed are of course individual and socially and culturally imprinted. However, when someone gets too close, we feel stress, worry, escapism, and potentially also aggression. In VR, it is easy to come way too close, which is one of the reasons why horror games are so very well suited for VR. This also has an interesting side effect on the use of head-mounted displays, especially in public spaces, such as museums and science centers. When you cannot see who's next to you, the radius for your intimate personal space becomes larger. So an alternative to head-mounted displays that is very suitable for public spaces are room-mounted displays, where the display system is mounted in the room and the visitor maintains their communication with their local peers. Some of these systems provide high level of immersion without stereoscopy. So the left example here, the Geodome portal from Illuminati, is curved to cover a large part of the peripheral vision, which can lead to a strong sense of immersion. Other systems have visitors put on the some lightweight 3D glasses and use head tracking for view correction. To the right here we see an exhibit that we built for research, but that we were able to use in a public exhibition on nanoscience. So in this system we mounted a camera above the user, tracking their head and heads for interaction. So by tracking the head, we can adjust the view so that the user gets correct perspective of 3D objects, as well as motion parallax effect. With this approach, we also get correct head-eye object coordination for the user so that they can reach out to interact with the objects floating in the air in front of them. At Norrköping Visualization Center, we've also worked with projected augmented reality. So in this example to the left, the heat signature of what you put on the table is projected with the projector back onto the actual object. You can see my hot hand is red and the cold water becomes blue. With the market of the most popular display systems, head-mounted displays, becoming saturated, we see more and more niched producers and products for XR displays. So many products for multisensory stimulation, for example, are coming to market, and even a product for commercial projected augmented reality, as we can see here an example from the company Lightform. Staying in the realm of displays in public spaces, I just have to mention dome systems, such as the one that we have at Norrköping Visualization Center. These systems can provide a high degree of immersion to a large audience, making them suitable for sharing advanced topics to the public or to customers or between team members in discussions. Through the VisDome project, we recently upgraded the Norrköping Dome, and the project also funded 4 new domes in Sweden, in Malmö, in Gothenburg, Stockholm and Umeå. In some applications of XR, neither stereo nor head tracking are necessary. In the left example, a wheelhouse bridge simulator, the distance to virtual objects, the ships and isles, are so large that stereo and parallax become unimportant. In many other examples, as in the example to the right, the XR display system is used to simulate another display system. Just replace the microscope, monitor or what system you have with an XR-driven monitor instead. During the 90s, the Cave system was very popular as a virtual reality display system. Here, stereographics is projected on the walls, floor and ceiling of a small space, typically 3 by 3 meters. This type of systems went out of fashion because of the large space necessary and because they were expensive and complicated to maintain. Lately, however, we've seen an increase in such systems in the research community, and we can expect to see more such products in the commercial space. For example, as we see to the right here, the large space in Tsukuba was presented in 2019. New techniques for automatic calibration, together with cheaper projectors, make these type of systems more accessible today. So me personally, you can see that I really love room-mounted display systems. You can jump between interacting with the virtuality or with the people around you, and you still have access to your phone or your note block. Head-mounted displays also have their advantages, especially upcoming products with resolution close to the eyes and with displays that also cover a large portion of the peripheral vision. But it all depends on what you want to achieve. In some cases you want to hide your view of the real world, but in other cases you just want the virtual environment to be an extension of your room. Sometimes also you want to reach out to a larger audience, but sometimes it's just you. So my hopes for the future in XR is that those active in the field appreciates the full width of technologies available and coming to market, and make use of the display system that is most right for each situation. So I've focused here on the visual modality, but a similar variety can also be found when it comes to touch technologies and other types of interaction. So again, I'm very sorry that I could not be here in person, but I'll answer what questions you may have if you send them via email. So thank you very much for listening.
It's time for the final speaker, and he will be live, but he will be not here physically. He is in Delhi, India. So we will connect with him, and hopefully it will work now.
Okay.
And while we are waiting for that, I can explain to you who are here in the room that at about 12:15, we will serve wraps and also some water. And it's also possible to try out things that we have been shown today. But now I think it's working. Yeah. Thank you.
So let's hand over to Umang Garg. You will introduce yourself for the audience here, and I'm not sure you see the audience, but I can assure you that they are here, like 40 people or so. So they're all eager here to listen into the use cases and also learn a bit more on what we can expect from Industrial Metaverse 2024 and beyond. Okay, Umang.
Yeah, voice check. Can you hear me well? Good. So, is the voice okay, Frederick? Can you hear me, Frederick? Can't hear you. In case.
Can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. And great to be here and joining virtually into this very interesting discussion on metaverse and predictions for 2024 and beyond. I know we are running a little bit late, so I'm going to be a bit quick and share with you a few slides that might be quite interesting for all of you. And could somebody confirm that you can see my slides? Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, let's deep dive a little bit into what we have today into this discussion. And essentially, I'll talk about four things. The first is give you a little bit of a snapshot into some interesting use cases on industrial metaverse. And then how can you really get started? The metaverse is a little bit different topic because of the way different technologies come together. So getting started also has a slightly different approach, at least that's how we see it. And then maybe a few highlights of 2023, followed by some of the things that we see happening in this space in the next couple of years. We've been quite active in this space for past couple of years, so we have a little bit of a view on how things are moving forward. Please don't hesitate to interrupt me if you have questions. Otherwise, I'll just do the Q&A towards questions and answers towards the end. So the way we think of metaverse use cases are in 4 dimensions. These dimensions are a little bit more suited towards industrial manufacturing companies, enterprises. The first dimension is around hyper immersive experiences. When you want to create a certain sort of sensory simulations of a real world scenario. The second set of examples are when you want to meet virtually and collaborate with fellow peers, collaborators in a virtual space. Just as we are doing today in a Teams meeting, how about if we were to do this in an industrial metaverse? A third example is when there is a human-machine interaction. So there is a physical world interaction with a virtual world interaction. And finally, and very importantly, industrial metaverse is a great way to create interactive learning in an anytime, anywhere format. So while there are many use cases in this area, we've just picked across each of these dimensions 4 most important use cases. So starting from this side, I'll start with the hyper immersive experiences. So the 4 most common use cases that we today see are product experience center. So when you have large industrial products that you want to demonstrate, industrial metaverse is a great way to do that. And if you think about virtual events, events like this today that we're having, we are using Teams as an example to connect in this event, but this could easily also be done in an industrial metaverse context. There are, of course, marketplaces and various types of service personalization that is possible in a metaverse context. And then if I move to meet me in space type of use cases, it is about collaboration often. When you're trying to develop a new product, you want to bring people together. Of course, you can bring them together in a room. You could also do it in this type of a digital forum. But how about if you could interact with the model, and as soon as that you start doing that, it becomes a very suitable use case for industrial metaverse. Onboarding new users who are joining the new team, a new company, a new work function, creating multi-party interactions, going from 2-dimensional space to a 3-dimensional space. Intelligent networking, I think we'll see more of this use case as we go along. Imagine that we were all in a metaverse context in an infinite space, infinite virtual space. How can we meet each other? How do I know that I need to meet you and you want to meet me? Maybe it's because of some shared interests. Maybe it is about some shared goals. So how can intelligent networking happen in industrial metaverse? The third examples are around digital twins. There's a lot of work happening in this space today. And of course, then there are more classical scenarios in the industrial enterprise about machine inspections, simulations. An area that has perhaps not picked up so much as yet, but likely to in the next few years, is space optimization. Imagine large warehouses or factories or greenfield activities that you are doing. And now how much space do you need? How do I set up that space? What goes where? Today, architects, designers do that on using AutoCAD and other 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional tools. You could also then similarly bring that context into a metaverse scenario and make it much more interactive. And finally, it's about learning, whether it's about hands-free learning, immersive assistants, simulations. These are all excellent metaverse use cases. Now, it would be so easy if there were just 1, 2, or 3 use cases, and then you have very few choices. I showed you 16 use cases. There are many, many more. So how do you really get started if you have so much choice? And earlier this year when we were working together with Visual Sweden, and a report that we published, my colleagues would have talked about this earlier today. We thought about 4 dimensions when you're thinking about use cases. These dimensions are innovation, cost, what would it take to, build a use case? What's the innovation potential of that use case? How do you think about that use case in the context of revenue you will get? And what type of user experience, stakeholder experience would you get from that use case? So we thought about these 4 dimensions. And when we thought about that, we said, okay, let's map the use cases that you have just seen, those 16 use cases, into some sort of a metaverse maturity radar. So the first part of the radar is getting started. What are those use cases that are easy to start with? Of course, they take effort, but it is just so much easier to get them organized and achieve them. And then, you move on to use cases where you are trying to establish a presence. You already have some assets, you already have some experience. And then you move to use cases like space optimization or machine simulation and so on, which are slightly more advanced. And a third level is when you are trying to advance capabilities. You already have some capabilities and you're now trying to push the boundaries of your capabilities with things like digital twins, product collaborations, immersive assistants helping you in metaverse and so on and so forth. And then once you have identified what use case dimensions are important to you and where you might actually be in that journey and choosing one of the use cases or maybe many use cases from this journey. The next question is, how do I really get started? And again, one of the key insights that we had was we've been working in this space, creating agile MVPs for many, many years. But we had to adapt that framework for metaverse for 3 reasons. Once, metaverse is not a single technology, it's a combination of many things coming together. Second, the ecosystem of metaverse is evolving. In that context, we said the 7 things that we need to do in order for any use case to be successful in metaverse is, do we know why we want to do that particular reason? What's the motivation? What are the use cases that we have identified? What is the ROI that we are thinking about, or maybe we believe that we would get? In the context of that use case, in the context of the team which is building it and the organization which is building it, what is the maturity? Are we beginners? Are we advanced? Are we experts? Do I have a roadmap? Do I want to create a roadmap, or am I just creating maybe an experiment? And if I have a roadmap and now I have lots of use cases, do I have the right skills, people, tools, technology to create a proof of concept? And of course, you want to make sure that the investment you do in your proof of concept, it also scales. So is the use case scalable? Imagine a use case where you need 10,000 people to enter into a metaverse. Yes, it can be done, but scalability could probably be a little bit of a challenge today. Now, once you've done this, there is obviously the part which is equally important and which is coming from my previous slide is where you are in your journey. Are you getting started? Are you establishing your presence, or you are already set up and now pushing the boundaries? If you are getting started, you're probably setting up a team, experimenting with some skills and technology skills and setting up some infrastructure, maybe buying some hardware. If you're establishing presence, your core team is getting expanded. Maybe you are exploring some partnerships with externally with other enterprises. And at some point in time, you have enough experience. You probably develop 3, 4, 5 use cases. And now you're thinking about creating not just one partner, but a partner ecosystem. Maybe you have a center of excellence in your company focused on metaverse. And that, in my mind, pushes the boundary to a point that you become extremely independent in implementing metaverse use cases. Now, the journey on metaverse has been ongoing for a few years. I think as a reflection, 2022 was a great year, lots of investment, hundreds of billions of dollars of investment. 2023 has been a little bit lightweight, but only a little bit. There is a lot of action happening there. So for example, there's been a lot of new innovation when it comes to hardware devices. HTC just released a few months back their new Vive XR Elite, which would typically be one of the gateways to the metaverse technology. We all know Apple finally took the bite and decided that, okay, they want to invest in metaverse. Their first device, Apple Vision Pro, is a little bit more consumer centric. But did we all not think that the Apple iPhone was consumer centric? And today, the iPhone is used everywhere, from business to enterprises to our private lives. We almost foresee that Apple's devices will have the same ripple effect in years to come, as they also create this ecosystem across some variety of companies, from Autodesk all the way to Pixar. So, from animation to, three-dimensional modeling, this is both covering consumer space and enterprise space. And I know we have friends from Ericsson and Telenor in the room. Mobile World Congress, Nagarro was there, as also, of course, Ericsson and so on. And, metaverse was a prominent theme. The convergence between telecom, hardware, software companies was a key point in the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona earlier in this year in February. And I foresee this trend to continue. There will be a large role that telecom and 5G technologies will play forcibly into the future. And a very interesting example, at metaverse at scale, BMW is setting up a new factory for the electric vehicles in Hungary. And the factory will take a few years to develop, but they're already creating a completely virtual factory, exactly how a real factory would look like. And this is happening in their industrial metaverse. So if anybody is thinking, hey, I'm doing POCs, I want to test try metaverse, it's not really at scale. Examples from BMW here, or Siemens, or many other such enterprises who are going about creating large-scale metaverse implementation are a great inspiration. And then from 2023 to next few years, so I have two parts to this. One is the North Star part, how we foresee some of the market trends. So we see typically a $40 billion type market, and this is in euros, US dollars. Who knows what the currency would look like? But yeah, let's think it's 37 billion euros sometime in 2025. And of this, just the digital twin and XR market is about roughly 60%. More interestingly, there is more and more research coming out that some of the largest global manufacturing companies, at least a good percentage of those companies, would have metaverse as a topic on their digital transformation, which I think is extremely important, because even if this 20% companies were to start implementing metaverse, what would happen is that this becomes an extremely competitive value proposition for them. Today, this number is close to 5%. So moving from 5% to 20%, that's a big jump over the next year and a half, 2 years. And now finally, Nagarro has been in this space for a few years, so we understand how this space is evolving. I think the 5 broad takeaways that I would share, this is probably me grazing a crystal ball and figuring out the future. And that 5G would be the key differentiator and active catalyst into metaverse technologies. Without that high speed, anywhere, anytime bandwidth, metaverse applications would not survive. I think the device maturity will increase by at least 2x in the next 12 to 18 months. Not only Moore's law, but I think just the broader ecosystem has a large role to play in this. Um, Digital twin use cases, I think we'll hear a lot more about them. So today we hear about these use cases at scale from BMWs and the Siemens and many more such companies. I think it would get a bit more democratic. I think we would start hearing many more digital twin use cases. Many of our customers are working on digital twin with us. I foresee that in the next few months, as those implementations get completed, that would also be a point in which they would start sharing with their clients and partners what they have done. An area where perhaps very little has been said so far, but would become very important in 2024 is what's the governance in the metaverse. There is already cases of laws being considered of how certain behaviors would be regulated in metaverse. There is a concept of consciousness in metaverse and rights of the people in metaverse. So the governance, both in the classical context of data, but also in a more broader context, would come into play. And now, no conversation today can finish or end without the context of AI. Does AI have a role in industrial metaverse? I would say absolutely. AI has a role in metaverse, starting from how we create metaverse to how experiences are being designed and showcased in metaverse. From creating avatars all the way to creating virtual sets and virtual designs, and creating interactions between personalities within metaverse who are interacting with each other. There is a lot more that we would see in the next year and a half on AI in the metaverse context. And finally, my last point, whatever little I have said is what I have said. But if I look around and think about what are some of the other global leaders are talking about metaverse, it's quite consistent. So for example, when we think about Frontier Collective, a very similar value proposition on AI to what I have just mentioned. They also add blockchain here. I personally am not a big fan of blockchain. We'll see how this goes, but AI for sure. Hansen Huang, one of the legendary CEOs of NVIDIA, everything around metaverse is somehow connected to him because NVIDIA is powering many of these devices. And I think, from human avatars and AI beings to being photorealistic, we already see some of these things happening. Microsoft is playing a large role in this, as also, some of the original technology partners and companies where they are thinking about how they are bringing metaverse technologies into the market. So hardware has a role to play. Yes, of course, because we want the hardware to be comfortable, right form factor, safe to use. But also, I think platforms will become more and more important. I'm going to pause with that last comment. It's great talking to you. I'm happy to take any questions that may be there.
Thank you, Umang. So there are so much things to be said, so sorry for being a little bit late or behind the schedule. But now we are finished in part one. So everyone has signed up for a lunch. You will be served lunch here. We will also have the expo area here, and also behind there will be one expo area, and there will be one here, so you can try it out, the glasses yourself, and go into the Innoverse to see digital twins, do training and so on, and try it yourself. And thank you very much for listening and paying attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.